Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review the latest album from an electronic artist called Baths. The album, actually pretty cool album title, in my opinion, Obsidian. Obsidian. The first thing, you jump into this album, track 1, Worsening, is just this dense electronic composition, and I was just blown away the first time I put this on, because I was just kind of taken aback by how, like, good it is. Really, to tell you the truth, electronica music for me is always kind of hit or miss, and it really kind of depends on the sound that the artist is going for. But really, I find that so many electronic artists nowadays are focused more on the sound and less on the songwriting.
Yes.
And I feel like Baths do a great job of understanding the dichotomy between the two.
I totally agree. That's a good way to put it.
It's very important that you balance both, because sound is really, really important, but also songwriting is very, very important. You got to have both to really be effective.
You can't just say, "Look at my great production," and say, "Well, the beats are freaking simple and stupid, and the melodies suck." And production is nothing if you don't have substance behind it. Basically.
Immediately into this album, I was thinking, wow, I haven't heard progressive electronica music like this since Postal Service's Give Up, which I love that album. But also, you know, you have colorful hints of indie in there. Really reminded me of Sufjan Stevens, and really the Age of Odds era of Sufjan Stevens, which I felt like was a good combination between the two, one that I had never really thought about before. So it was interesting from the get-go. Tom, what was your take on Obsidian's sound? How did it kind of hit you at first?
Yeah, it was odd for me at first, which I think it really is going to be for anybody.
It's a different album. It really is a different sounding album.
Now, if you focus, the two big aspects obviously are the vocals and the thick electronic compositions, beats,
for the
electronic
most
melodies.
Part, everything you hear is electronic. There is some piano scattered throughout the album.
Exactly, and totally agree. But really, when you focus on the instrumental aspect of it, those electronic components, I think that they're really well put together. I think a lot of the beats are very interesting. They're produced to sound really good, really sharp, complement each other in this just kind of big moving wash. And then the vocals. And the vocals is what was really, really tough for me. From every aspect, the lyrics, the delivery, and even beyond the vocals themselves, how they tie into the instrumentals. That's something that I find as we go on this musical journey through life, listening to everything that we can get our hands on. I find that something about me is that I am very, very particular about how vocal moods presented in delivery and lyrics line up with the instrumental presentation given behind it.
Yeah, you really got to pay attention. I think that's I think that comes down to craft. Like, you got to be able to craft those two elements together.
Well, and that's something that for this album, there was a big clash for me, and it really made it tough for me to get into. And I think for some people, they're really going to like that, because I think that there is a deliberate kind of rift between those two elements. I mean, well, let's look at it. The instrumentals, while they can be dark sometimes, they're produced so sharp that there's all that high end, and it comes off to me sounding somewhat poppy at times. Not all the time. There are darker songs. Listen to like track 9, Earth Death, and that is heavy. That is almost industrial. Right. But there are also some really bright moments as well. But the lyrics throughout, and the way that he's presenting them are very flamboyant, but they're also tackling subjects like death, sexual confusion, suicide, depression, a lot of things like that just, to me, it's weird how it comes off.
Yeah, the lyrics were the toughest part for me, and I completely agree with everything you said about the vocals. To me, that was the biggest challenge. This album was a very interesting case to review, because there's two very different aspects to it, the vocals and then everything else, which is really just the electronic composition underneath. The vocals, as Tom said, it came down to me to beat the lyrics. The lyrics, I mean, were so out there that it drew your attention to the vocals. Now, I like it when artists can do that. When your lyrics are keen enough or out there enough that you're drawing the listener's attention into the vocal parts, and then forcing the listener to pay attention to the vocal part itself and how it's interplaying with the instrumentation in the backing music. That's something that's really a cool songwriting trick. Now, but it relies on one concept, and that's that those things are of a high quality.
Yeah.
And it's not of a high quality. The vocal parts just simply aren't strong on this album. Will Wiesenfeld's voice on this album isn't that great of a vocal presentation. He doesn't have great vocal presentation. He doesn't write parts that fit well with the music, and the vocal parts themselves aren't of that high of a quality.
And I felt like a lot of the time he was presenting these really down lyrics in a fashion that really didn't match
Ready
with
for
it.
this?
All right.
The lyrics was what put me over the edge. I really liked a lot of the things that I heard on this album, and I could even get past some of the things the complaints I had with the vocal parts. But the lyrics was the thing that really knocked me down, because I gotta say, I'm not that prude of a guy, right?
No, I agree.
You agree? You've known me
I know this.
since like what? You were 12 when we met, and we've been best friends ever since. Like, I'm kind of out there.
Yeah.
I'm you can talk to me about any subject. It's not going to make me feel uncomfortable. The lyrical content on this album makes me feel uncomfortable. And I realized this, and I realized that some of the lyrics, like nursing this erection back to full health, there's a reference to a rectal wall. Oh, I just can't.
The rectal wall of agony.
I can't. I don't even have words. Words can't come out of my mouth to talk about how much this bothers me, because it's just these hyper sexual metaphors for things that may not be related to sex. But there are certainly some sexual content to them, and there's certainly tracks that deal with sexual content. But a lot of the sexual metaphors, may not necessarily be referring to sex. So that's it was just this device that he was using to make it just that out there. If you take the lyrics, I actually did this. If you take the lyrics and then read them very quietly with a lisp, it sounds like a sexual predator is singing to you.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. I just wanted to see if my hunch was right. But ever since I did that, I can't get off the fact that I feel like this guy may be a sexual predator, and it's terrifying to me.
It's definitely one of those cases where this artist is letting you into his own little world.
Oh, I never want to be in his house. Whatever's going on in his mom's basement is something I don't want to be a part of.
It's like, the thing is though, I found it not to be very inviting at all.
No.
Now this is his art. I'm sure some people are really going to be able to connect with this, get into it.
Totally cool.
But
I just couldn't do it.
And we actually had a similar thing to say about Impersonator by Magical Clouds, which we reviewed recently.
Yep.
It's a very intimate listen. This person is letting you in on aspects of their mind and their world that maybe even should be more secretive than they are. But that's gonna be the make or break of it. For me, it was a little off, but it wasn't even just about the lyrics. Part of it was because let's look at a couple examples. A couple of electronic-based albums we've really liked over the past few years have been Memory Tape, Seek Magic, Washed Out's Within and Without, and both of those, I feel like the vocalists knew where the vocals should be in the mix.
Right.
They knew what their strengths were. The vocals weren't highlights of those albums, but they certainly enhanced them. Here, the focus is all on the vocals, but the vocals are probably the weakest part of the album, even lyrically aside. Like, I felt like the performance of it didn't match with the sound, the background he was creating, and they were mixed in such a way that they distracted from some of the cool electronic elements that were going on here.
But still, I mean, if your entry point is the crazy lyrics, which I imagine for most of us out there, because the lyrics are so out there, I've never heard, it's just rare that you talk about rectal walls of agony and erections and things like that, and you never hear these lyrics. In our society, it's a difficult subject matter. It's shock value. But I'm almost okay with that if everything else was good.
Yeah, and if in some way you were able to connect with it because of it.
Sure.
Because, I mean, I don't know, maybe for you this works, but I don't listen to that and be like, oh man, yeah, that rectal wall of agony. I feel that, I get it. I don't get it. I just don't. And maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe everyone else out there is getting it and I'm just not, but that's where I'm at with it. I thought that this was an album that had a lot to offer, a lot of good things, but just a few key things that brought it down for me, and I gotta say, I did not look forward to it when I listened to it. Also, I gotta say, tracks 5 and 6, Incompatible and No Eyes, I just hated those songs. I thought the last 4 songs were pretty strong. The album starts out strong, kind of goes bad, and then kind of gets good again, but that's still, even the high points for me were just not really all that great.
I think that this guy has a lot of potential to make really cool electronic music. It was just, you have to focus on the big picture and how things, every single piece of the sound is being integrated throughout the scope of the album. And if he's not doing that clearly on the vocal part, because you're not, we were able to just sit down and analyze how the vocals are integrating with the mix, and clearly there was some disconnect between the two. I mean, that's an issue that needs to be fixed if this guy is going to put out a good album, and I just don't feel like this is a good album. I think it's an album that shows a lot of positive traits, that where there's a few key items he needs to work on, and for that we go high 60s. I'm giving this a 68.
I'm going to give this a 63.
Okay.
Going a little lower.
So we are mid 60s on this album. Obviously, as I said, that there's some issues that need to be worked out. Now, Tom and I were kind of harsh on this at times. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't like it. If you guys like this album and like the work that Baths do and like the lyrical content, there's nothing wrong with that. And we absolutely encourage you to just listen to this album, to love listening to this album, and to leave us a comment telling us your thoughts about it. So please do at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, as always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums from 2013 you've been listening to lately and would like to see us review. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.